Howdy folks, welcome to lesson 1 of the CompTIA Network Plus course. For those of you who did not watch the intro video of this course is based on the N10-009 version of the Network Plus course, which is currently the latest version of the N Plus course when this video was made. If you're wondering if this content is still relevant, for an older version perhaps of N Plus or even a newer version of N Plus, absolutely, it's still completely relevant for the older versions as well as the newer versions of the N Plus course. They're about 90 to 95% the same. So basically what happens is whenever CompTIA releases a newer version of the course, they go and take out a couple of things, not much, things that they consider legacy, and then obviously they go and add one or two things which are now obviously new on the market. But all in all, it's still going to be about 90 to 95% the same. So if you would like to use this version of the course to go and study for an older version or even a newer version, you'll be about 90 to 95% accurate. So that should still be more than enough to pass any newer or older version of the course. Now, as for this specific video, folks, it's going to be one of many. I'm going to divide this course into lessons, which are much smaller and easier to digest. So if you're new in N+, it's not going to be overwhelming. At least that's the idea. I don't want to overwhelm anyone that might be new in networking. So with that in mind, please keep an eye out for the rest of the N Plus videos, which will be released shortly after this one. Now, before we get started, folks, if you haven't done it already, please do me a favor and give this video a like so that I can help more folks out there with free training material. Folks that might not be able to afford study material. Then, if you'd like to know when the next lesson goes live or if I upload something else in general, maybe also consider subscribing so that you don't miss it. Alright, I think that is enough mumbo jumbo for now. Let's go learn some N+. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be talking about, folks, is how are personal and IT networks similar? Because these are two things that are relatively different normally in the real world. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little block here on the left hand side for you guys. I'm going to call that social network. I'm going to put a block here on the right hand side, and I'm going to call that an IT network. And we're going to basically do a bit of a comparison of sorts between the two so we can get a bit of an idea of where we're coming from. So on the social networking side of things, this would normally be something like a collection of friends, a collection of family, a collection of co-workers and acquaintances, and often you'll see it's a combination of all of those. So there's lots of examples out there. I think one of the most famous ones and one of the most well-known ones will probably be Facebook. It's obviously not limited to Facebook. You guys can probably think of a lot of social networking websites out there. If you look at the IT side of things, this is normally a collection of computers and other devices which are connected by transmission medium. So this is going to be something like a wireless network that they're on. They could be on some sort of wired network, like I think a lot of you guys call that a LAN in some cases. Now, if we go back to the social side of things, that provides people with emotional support. Honestly, there's a lot of people that just go onto these platforms for emotional support. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people go onto these platforms for advice, opportunities, and just personal matters. Sometimes we just want to socialize. That's half the time why I'm on social media. It's just I like to socialize and I like to read funny things and see funny things. So if you're the kind of person that's going to have negative things on your page, I'm probably not going to read your stuff. But if you've got funny things that's positive, that's for me. But that's just me personal. Everybody's got their own cup of tea. As for the IT side of things, that provides an opportunity for shared resources. So if you want to go and share resources in a small company environment, this can even be in a home-sized environment, that's going to work just fine. This can even work in a medium-sized company, a massive enterprise-sized company. It doesn't really matter. Either way, it allows people to share resources one way or another. Back on the social side of things, it helps in communication, information sharing, and social connections. Now, unfortunately, when we say information sharing, this does not mean it's always going to be true information. There's going to be lots of cases out there where there might be false information that's spread, a hoax of sorts. So it's very important you guys educate yourself in what may or may not be a hoax and what may or may not be false information. Don't always believe what you read online. There used to be a saying in the old days where they said, don't always believe what you read in the papers. Nowadays, people don't really buy newspapers that much anymore. They're almost extinct. So now that kind of applies to online media nowadays, if you think about it. Don't believe everything you see online, guys. There's a lot of false information out there, so rather verify your sources. As for the IT side of things, helps with communication and information sharing in a digital environment. So how cool is that? Alright folks, and then moving on to the second topic in today's lesson, networks. Now there are actually in reality many kinds of networks we get, but the two main ones I want to talk to you guys about today is peer-to-peer and client-server. So with the peer-to-peer one, I've got a bit of a picture for you guys here on the left hand side. So if you pay close attention, you'll notice those are all laptops. I suppose those could have been desktops as well, would have served the same purpose. So whether they be laptops, whether they all be desktops, you'll notice that these are all computers. There's no servers there. There's no nothing else there. It is just computers, which we often refer to as nodes. Now, in a peer-to-peer network environment, these computers are sharing information directly with one another. A pretty good example would be when the guys go online and they download all kinds of illegal stuff. I'm not encouraging you guys to go and do that. Please don't do that. But when people go to these illegitimate sources online, they normally go and use what we call torrents. And when they do that, the reason why they're able to get that stuff that's illegitimate is because they're not pulling it from an actual server in most cases. They're pulling it from other people out there. So you can, for example, imagine me and you are sharing information amongst one another, and in this group between me and you, there's maybe 50 other people. So it's me and you, 50 other people, and all of our PCs are connected to one another over the internet, and we're sharing illegitimate stuff with one another. So there's a lot of piracy going around, with that in the world. Unfortunately, it's quite difficult to regulate that. As long as you guys try and keep your nose clean, try and keep yourselves out of that. But generally, in a nutshell, peer-to-peer is PCs that's downloading stuff from other PCs. So if you go online and you get yourself a torrent and you decide to go and download something, that something is not being downloaded from a server like a lot of people might think. You're actually pulling that something from a lot of people all over the world. A lot of computers, personal computers all over the world. Other people that already have that same file. And once it's on your PC, if you don't stop it, your machine will automatically share it back to other people that might want to go and download it. So that's basically what a peer-to-peer network is in a nutshell. Then as for the client-server one, which is actually the more legitimate one out of the two, there's normally a server involved or multiple servers involved. So when you decide to, for example, go and download something, I'm just using a download as an example, you're not going to be downloading it from lots of other users like a peer-to-peer network. No. Instead, we're going to be downloading it from a server somewhere, usually a legitimate server. So it's stored in a server someplace safe, someplace a lot more secure. The chances of you getting some sort of malware infection is normally a lot less with servers. But you're not going to be pulling it from a lot of other users. Instead, it's just going to be a server environment. Now, the third topic I want to talk to you guys about today is still under networks, but this is specifically local area networks. Now, in case you guys are aware of this already, yes, you do get other kinds of networks as well, but they're not discussed in today's lesson. So you do, for example, get a PAN, P-A-N, which is a personal area network. Then you get a LAN, which is a local area network, the one that we're kind of sort of discussing today. You get WANs, MANs, GANs. There is so many kinds of other networks, all of which will be discussed in due time in this course in later lessons. Like I said, we're going to be dividing this course into smaller lessons, which are easier to digest, and so that we don't overwhelm anyone that might be new in N+. So with regards to local area networks, guys, a local area network, which we call a LAN for short, is confined to a single geographic location. Normally, within most cases, this is going to be within one building, but it's not limited. So if I have a computer in a building and you have a computer in that same building and we are connected to one another via, let's say, a network cable, that would technically be a LAN. It's an extremely small LAN. It's a direct LAN, but it's technically still a LAN. But a LAN could actually extend to a couple of thousand devices for all we know. Usually this is going to all still be in the same building, but it's not limited to a building. It's just usually going to be within one building. But guys, there are cases, many cases out there where a LAN can actually extend across multiple buildings. There might be 3 buildings on the same premises within close proximity of one another, and these 3 buildings might be connected to each other wirelessly, but it might still form part of the same LAN if connected correctly and configured correctly. But in a nutshell, generally a LAN is going to be within one building, and it's generally going to be within one geographic location, just in case you didn't know. Then we also get something called a SOHO. Now, what is a SOHO? Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Maybe I might be butchering it. So a SOHO is an abbreviation for small office, home office network, guys. So this is a home or a business-oriented network that uses a centralized router or router, depending on which country you're from, you'll pronounce this differently. So it uses a centralized router or server to network computers, mobile devices, and other devices or appliances. So this is normally like a small pretend kind of company or make-believe company. It's not really. I just like to call them make-believe or pretend companies. So this could honestly be a small little company that maybe consists of as little as just 20 or 30 employees. They most likely have no fancy or special equipment. It's just a couple of people of their laptops or desktops, one or two tablets or phones, a router, and that's it. They might not even have a server. They might not even have a firewall. If there is a server, it's just going to be like one, and it's probably going to be a very small one. So there's no real security. There's no real networking involved there. No real servers. I've seen quite a few that might have a server, but it's normally a very small server. It doesn't have any serious capabilities. So that's a SOHO environment. When you get what we call an enterprise LAN, so these could be small and medium-sized enterprise networks, and networks supporting possibly dozens of users with structured cabling, switches, and routers. You'll find sometimes these are networks that support hundreds or even thousands of users with multiple enterprise class switches and routers. So you get small ones, well, medium-sized ones, let's just call them medium, and then you get massive ones. Some of these enterprise LANs, they'll have their own servers, like proper top dog servers. They'll have their own proper top dog server rooms. They might have a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand users. These users have anything from a laptop to a desktop to a tablet or a phone. They've got pretty much anything you can think of. You name it, they've got it. So any real average everyday company is probably going to be considered an enterprise LAN. Lastly, folks, you get something called a data center. Something a lot of companies wish they had, but unfortunately a lot of companies can't quite have this because it's very expensive. You basically have to sell one of your kidneys to be able to afford one of these, and you still won't be able to afford it, I think. So a data center, in case you didn't know, is a network that hosts only servers and storage, not client devices. So if you don't know what a client device is, I mean, you probably should know what it is by now. You probably did A+. That's something like a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, or phone. In a data center, you're not going to find any of that. Nope. You're only going to find servers. You're going to find storage there. And these data centers, they could be massive or they could be small. And if you go look at large entities like Google or Microsoft, they've got massive data centers. Right, folks, and then I'm going to move you on to the last topic in today's lesson, network topologies. I'm going to list 3 different types of network topologies for you guys. Now, before someone goes in the comment section and says, hey, but I know you get a bus topology, or I know you get a ring topology, or a partial mesh topology. You didn't mention those or explain those. Yes, I'm aware, and it's on purpose because it's not part of this lesson. The new N+ version of the course doesn't really cover those as much as the older versions. I suppose you can call those legacy. A bus topology and a ring topology is not discussed in today's lesson because they're legacy. It's old school stuff which is basically almost extinct. In some cases, they actually might be extinct. So I will go through them nonetheless, but in a later lesson. Today, we're going to discuss point-to-point. That's the first one on my list. And a point-to-point, in case you don't know, I'm going to give you guys a bit of a picture here so that you've got something, a visual aid, so that, as they would say. There's 2 computers for you. I'm going to put a little title there, point-to-point. Point-to-point could, honest to God, just be 2 computers with a direct link between them. That's it, guys. As simple as that. So the name on its own should actually explain what you need to know. A point-to-point is just 2 computers with a direct network cable between them. A normal LAN cable. It's going to be Cat5, Cat6, that kind of stuff. That's it. End of story. Point-to-point. Then, guys, the second topology I've got for you guys today is a star topology. This is probably the most common kind of topology you'll get in most company environments and most home environments. So a star topology, I think to once again help you with a visual aid, I'm going to give you guys 5 computers here. But in real life, it's going to probably be way more than just 5 computers. So a star topology is when you've got computers in a building, and these computers, let me just add a title there, star, so that we've got something to work with here. These computers are normally connected to a central point, something like a switch. And we call it a star topology, and in this case, it kind of does look like a star. But in real life, guys, it's not going to look like a star. So these could be a whole bunch of PCs in a room or in an office environment, and maybe in a corner of the office you'll find a switch. But all the computers in that office are all connected to the same switch in the corner of that office. So that switch in the corner of the office is technically the central point if you think about it. So it's got lots of benefits, and there's very little downsides to a star topology. The benefits is if one of the computers goes offline, it doesn't affect the other ones. If the cable of one of these computers is affected in some sort of way, maybe it's unplugged, gets damaged or broken in some sort of way, the other computers are not affected by that. But there is a point of failure here, and that's going to be the center, being the switch in this scenario. So God forbid, if something happens to the switch in the middle, then everybody is offline. The good news here is most switches are very easy to go and replace. Very easy, and depending on the kind of switch you are using, it might even be a cheap switch. So if it's a small office environment, chances are it's a very cheap switch. It's going to be relatively inexpensive. If it's a huge company environment, chances are they might have some sort of fancy, expensive managed switch in there. Might cost you a little bit more now, but it's going to be very easy and very quick to go and place that, and it's going to be very quick to get people back up and running again. So downtime essentially is going to be minimal, which is what we want in a company environment. Lastly, folks, here is a mesh topology. So mesh topology is probably one of the most complicated kind of topologies you're going to get. Generally, we only find these in server room environments or site environments, if you know what that is. So I'm going to put a little bit of a picture here for you guys, a visual aid. At first glance, it might just look like that star topology from before, but it's not. I'm going to put a little title there. So instead of saying star, I'm going to say mesh. There's no central point in this situation, guys. So before I had a little switch there in the middle. So I gave you guys PCs here, but the fact of the matter is these are probably not going to be PCs. These are probably going to be something else. And this might be one site or it might be multiple sites. So normally, to kind of sort of help with things like redundancy and high availability, we will go and use lots of cables, lots of links to link everything together more than once. So that if a cable somewhere along the line or a link somewhere along the line goes offline, absolutely nobody loses connection of absolutely nobody else. Now, what I mean by that, let me show you guys here a bit of a visual aid. I'm going to draw lines between all these computers. And so that's kind of like a ring topology if you think about it. Now I'm going to draw some more lines. Now, if you look closely, you'll see every machine here is connected to every other machine. So it doesn't matter if one of these cables goes offline, gets broken, or gets unplugged. Every machine will still be connected to every other machine. Except it's not going to be machines in real life. It's probably going to be routers and switches and other things that's going to be connected here. But essentially, everything will still be connected to everything else through the other ones. You're never really going to lose connection. So that's a massive high availability, high uptime guarantee that you're getting. So if you look at a server room environment or site environment where you cannot afford for things to lose connectivity or be offline, this is going to be the go-to one that you're going to be using. Now, unfortunately, with some of these, it can get quite deep. It can be quite technical to work out how many cables you need or how many cables you've used. So when it comes to the actual links and stuff, there's a formula you can go and use to work this out. So there's a formula for you guys that on the left-hand side. N normally gets replaced by the amount of machines you're using. And then you just work out the rest of the formula. It's going to show you how many network cables you're going to need essentially in this network. Alright folks, so that is it for today's lesson. I hope you've enjoyed this short lesson. It's much shorter than the normal videos on my channel. Please keep an eye out for lesson 2. There's going to be lots of videos. If you guys haven't done it already, please remember to give the video a like. And also remember to subscribe, otherwise you might miss lesson 2. And then just a quick shout out and thank you to all the sponsors of this channel. The Patreon sponsors, there they are. Thank you very much guys. Shout out to the PayPal sponsors. Thank you very much guys. And if you'd like to sponsor the channel, you can find that information in the video description down below. You can make a donation to PayPal even if you want to. Or you can go buy me a coffee or a milkshake if you want to. All of that's in the video description down below. Lastly, folks, before we conclude this video, I do have a Discord server. It's called Free IT Training. If you'd like to join that, it's literally the very last link in the video description. So if you go all the way to the bottom of the video description, there you will find the Discord server link if you'd like to join that. I'm in there. There's other IT trainers in there. There's lots of other IT people in there. People studying this course, like you, people that have already done N+. So if you've got any questions, you can go and ask them there. Someone can help you. If you would like to help other people, you can also go and join in and just test your knowledge and help other people out. Either way, it's a community of like-minded people. Alright, folks, that is me for today for this lesson. Please keep an eye out for lesson 2. I'll see you in lesson 2 of the N+ course.